The Texas sun blazed low, casting long shadows across the dusty plains as the small settlement a red hollow shimmered in the heat. The year was 1875, a time when the frontier pulsed with lawlessness and hope. Clara Hayes ran through the streets, her breath ragged, her skirt torn from thorns. Behind her, the shouts of bandits grew louder. 5 men on horseback, their faces masked, their guns glinting. They'd raided her family's store at dusk, leaving smoke and chaos, her father wounded, her brother missing. She clutched a small sack of coins, the last of their savings, and darted toward the open plain, her heart pounding. Dust kicked up under her boots as she stumbled, the bandits closing in. A gunshot cracked, missing her by inches, the bullet embedding in a fence post. She ducked, her dark hair whipping in the wind, her eyes scanning for escape. The settlement offered no refuge, doors locked, windows dark. Her legs burned, her lungs ached, but fear drove her forward. The bandits' laughter echoed, cruel and relentless, their horses thundering closer. She tripped, falling to her knees, the sack slipping from her grasp. A shadow loomed ahead, a figure on horseback, motionless against the horizon. Jasper Cole sat tall in his saddle, his weathered hat tipped low, his rifle cradled across his chest. The rancher had ridden out from his spread a mile west, drawn by the distant gunfire. His land, a modest patch of grazing fields and a sagging barn, had been his refuge since the war, a place to mend a soul scarred by loss, a wife taken by fever, a son lost to the draft. At 42, his hands were callous, his eyes sharp, his life quiet until this moment. He squinted, seeing the girl running, the bandits pursuing, and his jaw tightened. He spurred his horse forward, the animal responding with a surge. Clara scrambled to her feet, the bandits' shouts deafening. Jasper raised his rifle, his first shot ringing out, the bullet striking a rider's shoulder, sending him tumbling. The second shot hit a horse's leg, the beast collapsing, throwing its rider. The third shot whizzed past, forcing the others to veer, their pursuit faltering. Clara froze, her eyes wide, as Jasper reined in beside her. "Up!" he barked, extending a strong arm. She hesitated, then grabbed his hand. Her small frame lifted onto the saddle behind him. The horse bolted, its hooves pounding the earth, the bandit's curses fading. Jasper leaned into the ride, his body shielding hers, her arms clutching his waist. The wind whipped past, the night deepening, the settlement a blur behind them. He guided the horse toward his ranch, the outline of his house emerging, a low structure with a porch, its windows dark. Clara's breath was hot against his back, her fear palpable. He slowed as they reached the yard, dismounting first, then helping her down. Her legs shook, her face streaked with dirt and tears. Inside, the house smelled of leather and stale coffee. Jasper lit a lantern, its glow revealing a sparse room. Table, chair, a cot in the corner. He gestured to the chair, his voice gruff. "Sit. They won't follow tonight." Clara sank into it. The sack clutched to her chest, her eyes darting to the door. He set his rifle against the wall, his hat on the table, and poured water from a jug, handing it to her. She drank, her hands trembling, then looked up at him. "They took everything," she whispered, her voice breaking. He nodded, his face hard, but his eyes softened. The night stretched on, the wind rattling the shutters. Jasper stood by the window, watching the dark, his hand near the rifle. Clara sat silent, her mind replaying the raid, her father's groan, her brother's shout, the bandits' greed. She was 25, strong but shaken, her life upended. Jasper glanced at her, noting her determination beneath the fear. He'd seen that look before in soldiers, in survivors. The ranch had been a sanctuary, but now it held a stranger, a problem he couldn't ignore. Morning broke gray, the plains quiet. He stepped outside, checking the horizon, his horse grazing nearby. Clara followed, the sack in hand, her steps hesitant. "I need to go back," she said, her voice firm. He turned, his brow furrowing. "Not yet. They'll be waiting." She clenched her fists, her eyes defiant. "My family's there." He studied her, then nodded. We'll go together. But we need a plan. She met his gaze, a flicker of gratitude breaking through her resolve. The ranch stirred with their presence. He saddled the horse, adding supplies, rope, a canteen, his spare revolver. Clara watched, her hands steadying, her mind racing. The bandit's threat loomed, but Jasper's calm anchored her. He handed her the revolver, his grip firm. Know how to use it? She nodded, checking the chamber, her fingers sure. The air felt charged, the day ahead uncertain. Their fates now linked by a single act of rescue. The Texas night deepened, the wind rattling the shutters of Jasper Cole's ranch house. The year firmly set in 1875, a time of rugged survival on the frontier. Jasper stood by the window, his rifle propped against the frame, his eyes scanning the dark plains. The fire in the hearth crackled, casting a warm glow over the sparse room. Clara Hayes sat in the chair, the sack of coins tight in her lap, her torn skirt patched with mud. The rescue still pulsed in her veins, the rancher's strong arm lifting her onto a saddle of memory she couldn't shake. Jasper turned, his face shadowed, his voice low. They won't come tonight. Too dark. Clara nodded, her hands trembling as she set the sack on the table. The coins clinked softly, a reminder of the raid. Her father's groan, her brother's disappearance, the bandit's greed. She looked up, meeting his gaze. I have to go back, she said, her tone firm despite the fear. He studied her, his jaw tightening. Not alone. They'll kill you. She clenched her fists, her eyes defiant. My family's there. He sighed, adjusting his hat. We'll figure out at dawn. Morning broke gray, the plains shrouded in mist. Jasper saddled his horse, the leather creaking under his hands. He added a rope and canteen, his movements deliberate. Clara watched from the porch, the revolver he'd given her heavy in her pocket. She checked it again, her fingers steady, a skill learned from her father. Jasper handed her a biscuit, his touch brief. Eat, he said. She took it, her hunger sharp, and ate in silence, the weight of their plans settling between them. They rode out, the horse's hooves muffled by the damp earth. Jasper led, his rifle across his lap, his eyes sharp. Clara clung to his waist, her body tense, her mind racing. The settlement of Red Hollow emerged, its shack silent, smoke still rising from the store. He reined in at the edge, dismounting to check the ground. Tracks, hoof prints, fresh, led west. They moved on, he said, his voice grim. Clara slid down, her legs shaky, and stepped toward the store, her heart pounding. Inside, the air was thick with ash. Shelves lay splintered, goods scattered. Her father sat against the wall, his arm bloodied but alive, his eyes widening at her return. Clara, he rasped. She knelt, tears falling, and pressed the sack into his hands. I got it back. Jasper stood at the door, rifle ready, his gaze on the street. A groan came from the back. Her brother, bound, bruised but breathing. She cut the ropes with Jasper's knife, her hands steady. The reunion was brief. Her father clutched the coins, his voice weak. They took the deed, wanted the land. Jasper frowned, stepping closer. Who? Her father shook his head. Didn't say. Just kept asking about water rights. Clara helped her brother up, his weight on her shoulder. Jasper scanned the room, noting the broken lockbox, the empty strongbox. The bandits hadn't left empty-handed. He met Clara's gaze, a silent question in his eyes. They returned to the ranch, the horse laden with her family. The house felt crowded, the cot given to her father, her brother sprawled on a blanket. Clara sat by the fire, her hands wrapping a cloth around her father's arm. Jasper stood outside, checking the horizon, his mind on the tracks. The water rights hinted at a bigger play. Land disputes were common, but this felt personal. He stepped back in, handing Clara a cup of water. We need to know more, he said. She nodded, her resolve hardening. Days passed in tense quiet. Her father healed slowly, his stories of the raid filling the gaps. Bandits demanding papers, threats of burning the town. Her brother recovered, his silence heavy with guilt. Clara worked alongside Jasper, mending fences, her hands busy but her mind restless. He watched her, noting her strength, her quiet determination. One evening, she handed him a repair harness, her smile faint. He took it, his gnaw deep, a flicker of trust growing. The ranch stirred with their presence. The field showed green shoots, the barn patched by their hands. But the threat lingered. Hoofbeats echoed one dusk. Faint but real, Jasper stood, rifle in hand, his heart steady. Clara joined him, the revolver drawn, her eyes on the horizon. The sound faded, but the tension held, tying their fates tighter. The ranch was no longer just his. It was hers, a refuge built on a single act of rescue. The Texas night hung thick, the wind rattling the shutters of Jasper Cole's ranch house. The year set in 1875, a time when the frontier tested every soul. Jasper stood by the window, his rifle resting against the frame, his eyes fixed on the faint hoofprints leading west. Clara Hayes sat by the hearth, her brother asleep on a rough blanket, her father dozing on the cot, his breathing steadier despite the bandaged arm. The air carried the scent of damp earth and wood smoke, the tension lingering. Jasper turned, his face shadowed by the lantern's glow. "Those tracks mean they're not done," he said, his voice low. Clara looked up, the revolver in her lap, her hands steady. "They want the water rights," she replied, her tone firm. Her father had spoken of it, bandits asking about deeds, threatening fire if he didn't comply. Jasper nodded, his jaw tight. Land's dry out here. Water's power. He stepped to the table, unfolding a worn map, tracing a line to a creek on his property. "Runs through my spread. Could be why they hit your place." Morning broke gray, the mist clinging to the grass. Jasper saddled the horse, adding a second rope, his hands steady. Clara joined him, her brother hobbling on a crutch, her father leaning on her shoulder. They rode to Red Hollow, the settlement quiet, its scars fresh, burned beams, shattered windows. Jasper dismounted, checking the store, his boots crunching glass. Clara helped her father inside, her brother limping behind. The air smelled of ash, the silence heavy. She found a charred ledger, its pages listing water rights, the deed gone. "They took it," she said, her voice breaking. Jasper studied the ledger, his brow furrowing. "This creek's been disputed for years. Silas Crow owned it before me." Clara's eyes widened. "The man who sold you the ranch?" He nodded, his mind racing. Silas had been a recluse, selling cheap before vanishing. The bandits' interest suggested a deeper play. Perhaps Silas owed them, or they claimed the water. He folded the map, meeting her gaze. "We need to track them, get that deed back." She clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. "For my family." They planned by the fire that night. Jasper cleaned his rifle, his movements precise. Clara sharpened a knife, her hands sure, a skill from her father's lessons. Her brother spoke, his voice weak. They headed west, toward the old mill. Jasper nodded, marking the spot on the map. Her father added, "They'll camp there. Water's scarce." Clara stood, her eyes steady. "I'm going." Jasper met her gaze, a flicker of respect in his. "We both are. Tomorrow." The ranch stirred with purpose. Clara mended her skirt, her hands quick, her mind on the fight ahead. Jasper repaired a saddlebag, his strength quiet. One afternoon, she handed him a stitched patch, her smile faint. He took it, his gnaw deep, a bond forming. The field showed green shoots, the barn patched, the house a refuge. But the threat loomed, the hoofbeats of memory driving them forward. They rode out at dawn, the horse steady under their weight. Jasper led, his rifle ready, Clara behind with the revolver. The plains stretched endless, the mill a distant silhouette. He spotted smoke, raining in behind a ridge. 5 men, he whispered, counting figures by the creek. Clara nodded, her breath steady, her hand on the gun. They dismounted, crawling closer, the bandits' voices carrying laughter, the clink of coins. Jasper's eyes narrowed, recognizing the scar-faced leader from the raid. The plan formed in silence. Jasper would draw their fire, Clara would flank. He stood, firing a warning shot, the bullet kicking dirt. The bandits scrambled, Guns drawn, their shouts sharp. Clara moved low, her knife glinting, cutting a rope holding their horses. The animals bolted, chaos erupting. Jasper fired again, dropping a man, the leader cursing. Clara reached the deed, tucked in a saddlebag, her hands trembling as she grabbed it. They retreated, the horse galloping back, the bandit's shots fading. Jasper pulled her up, her body pressed against his, the deed safe in her grip. The ranch loomed ahead, a haven in the dusk. Inside, they spread the deed on the table, its ink smudged but legible. Water rights to Jasper's land. Clara's father smiled, weak but proud. Jasper met her gaze, a quiet victory in his eyes. Their fates now intertwined. The Texas night pressed in, the wind rattling the shutters of Jasper Cole's ranch house. The year set in 1875, a time when the frontier was a crucible of survival. Jasper stood by the table. The recovered deed spread before him, its ink smudged but legible. Water rights to his land, now a target for the bandits. Clara Hayes sat nearby, her brother asleep on a blanket, her father resting on the cot, his breathing steadier despite the bandaged arm. The air carried the scent of damp earth and wood smoke, the tension thick. Jasper traced a map, his finger stopping at the old mill where they'd found the deed. "They'll come back," he said, his voice low, his eyes hard. Clara looked up, the revolver in her lap, her hands steady from practice. "For the water?" He nodded, his jaw tight. "Silas sold him a lie. Rights he didn't own. They think I've got proof." She frowned, recalling the bandits' demands at the store, their threats of fire. "They'll burn us out." He met her gaze, a plan forming. "We fortify. Tomorrow at dawn." She nodded, her resolve hardening, their bond forged in the day's chase. Morning broke with a pale sun, the plains stretching wide and empty. Jasper worked outside, reinforcing the barn door with planks, his hands calloused from years of labor. Clara joined him, her skirt patched, her strength surprising as she hammered nails with precision. Her brother hobbled out, crutch under his arm, stacking hay bales with effort. Her father watched from the porch, his arm still bandaged, his eyes sharp with experience. They built a barricade, barrels, bales, a makeshift wall, the ranch transforming into a stronghold. Jasper handed Clara a rifle, his grip firm. "Learn it quick," he said. She took it, her fingers adjusting, a quick learner under his guidance. The day passed in tense rhythm. Clara practiced shooting, her first shot scattering dirt, then hitting cans with growing accuracy. Jasper stood beside her, his voice calm, his hand correcting her stance. Her brother repaired a fence, his silence breaking with a rare nod of approval. Her father offered advice, his knowledge of old fights a quiet anchor. The field showed green shoots, the barn stood strong, the house a haven. But the horizon held a threat, the hoofprint of memory driving them forward. Dust brought the sound, hoofbeats, growing louder. Jasper stood on the porch, rifle ready, his heart steady. Clara joined him, the revolver drawn, her eyes on the west. Her brother limped to the window, a shotgun in hand, his face set. Her father gripped a knife, his posture tense. 5 riders emerged, dust-caked, guns glinting. The scar-faced leader in front, his sneer familiar. "Hand over the deed," he shouted, his voice rough against the wind. Jasper stepped forward, his voice firm. "This land's mine. Ride on." The leader laughed, drawing his gun. "We'll take it." The first shot rang out, splintering a barrel, the bullet winding past. Jasper fired back, his bullet striking a rider's arm, sending him down with a cry. Clara aimed, her shot hitting a horse's flank, the animal rearing and throwing its rider. Her brother fired from the window, pellets scattering the group, a rider ducking. Her father threw a knife, grazing the leader's leg, drawing blood. The fight erupted, bullets flew, with cracked. Dust rose thick. Jasper moved low, pulling Clara behind a bale, his hand on her shoulder. "Stay down," he barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. The bandits pressed, their numbers thinning. Jasper fired again, dropping another, the leader cursing as he reloaded. Clara leaned out, her shot steady, hitting a rider's gun hand, the weapon clattering to the ground. Her brother reloaded, his aim true, felling a third with a spray of shot. The leader rallied, charging the porch, but her father's knife found his thigh again, slowing his advance. Jasper rose, firing point blank, the leader collapsing with a groan, his men breaking and fleeing into the dusk. The silence returned, broken only by the wind and the ranch's creaking timbers. They dragged the bodies to the barn, the rain starting again, washing the blood into the mud. Clara checked her father, his arm trembling but intact, a faint smile on his lips. Her brother slumped against the wall, exhausted but alive, the shotgun still warm. Jasper stood by the door, rifle smoking, his breath ragged, his eyes scanning the dark. He met Clara's gaze, a quiet victory in his expression. She nodded, her hand on the deed, their bond sealed in the fight. The ranch held, its walls a testament to their stand. The rain intensified as they stepped back inside. Clara tended her father's bandage, her hands gentle but sure, while Jasper secured the door, his mind on the fleeing bandits. Her brother stirred, offering a weak grin, the tension easing. They gathered by the hearth, the fire casting long shadows. The deed safe on the table. Jasper poured water, handing a cup to each, his movements deliberate. "We held them," he said, his voice soft but firm. Clara met his eyes, a flicker of gratitude breaking through her exhaustion. "Thanks to you," she replied, her tone steady. The night stretched on, the rain a steady drum. Jasper checked the barricade again, his boots leaving wet prints, his rifle close. Clara sat with her family, the revolver beside her, her mind on the water rights, Silas's betrayal, the bandits' greed. Her father spoke, his voice weak. "They won't stop. That creek's worth more than gold." Jasper nodded, his plan clear. Protect the land, protect them. He glanced at Clara, her strength a quiet mirror to his own, their partnership unspoken but growing. The ranch felt alive, its walls scarred but standing, the field promising harvest. The Texas dawn broke soft, the quiet of the morning broken only by the distant cry of a hawk soaring over the plains. The rain had ceased, leaving the land glistening under a pale sky, the ranch standing scarred but defiant after the recent skirmish. Jasper Cole leaned against the doorframe, the deed tucked into his coat, his rifle resting nearby. The year was 1875, and the weight of the past few days hung heavy in the air. Clara Hayes sat by the hearth, her brother stirring on a rough blanket, her father awake on the cot, his bandaged arm propped up. The room smelled of wet earth and wood smoke, a new peace settling over the small gathering. Jasper stepped outside, checking the barricade, the barrels and bales still in place, the barn door secure. The bodies of the bandits were gone, dragged away by the fleeing survivors under cover night, their tracks faint but heading west toward the vast, untamed territory. He scanned the horizon, his mind on the water rights, Silas Crow's betrayal, the creek's value, the fight they'd won. Clara joined him, the revolver holstered at her side, her eyes clear despite the exhaustion etched into her face. "They won't come back soon," she said, her voice steady with newfound resolve. He nodded, his gaze softening. Not with the deed safe and the sheriff's word. Inside, the family gathered around the dim light of a kerosene lamp. Clara tended her father's arm, her hands gentle but sure, while her brother stretched, his crutch leaning against the wall, his strength slowly returning. Her father managed a weak smile, his voice raspy from days of strain. "You did good, girl," he said, pride breaking through his pain. She handed him the sack of coins, its weight a symbol of their survival against the odds. Jasper poured coffee from a blackened pot, the aroma filling the room, and handed a cup to each, his movements deliberate. "We need to rebuild," he said, his tone firm with purpose. Clara met his eyes, a flicker of agreement in her expression. "Together," she added, her voice carrying the weight of their shared struggle. Days turned into weeks of quiet labor under the wide Texas sky. The field grew thick with crops, the barn repaired with new planks cut from local timber, the fences mended with rope and sweat. Clara worked alongside Jasper, her hands learning his rhythm, her strength a match for his as they hauled water and repaired tools. Her brother took to light tasks, his limp fading with each passing day. his grin returning as he helped with the livestock. Her father advised from the porch, his arm healing slowly, his stories of old cattle drives and frontier fights weaving a bond between them. The ranch stirred with life, the creek flowing steady, its water a lifeline they now guarded with vigilance. Jasper watched Clara one afternoon, her skirt patched from the journey, her laugh soft as she handed him a hammer. He took it, his gnaw deep, a partnership unspoken but growing stronger. The threat lingered on the horizon, a shadow of the past. A week later, a lone rider approached, a weatherman with a sheriff's badge pinned to his vest, his horse lathered from a ride. Jasper met him at the gate, rifle ready, Clara beside him with the revolver drawn. The sheriff dismounted, his face lined with years under the sun. "Heard about the fight out here," he said, his voice gruff but fair. "Bandits were after water rights. Silas owed them from a bad deal. You're clear now, long as you hold this land." He handed Jasper a paper, official recognition of the deed, stamped with the county seal. Clara sighed, relief washing over her tired features. The sheriff tipped his hat. "Keep that creek safe. It's your blood in it now." He rode off, the plain swallowing him in the dust. The ranch flourished. 3 months passed, the field yielding a strong harvest under the 1875 sun, the barn standing tall against the winds, the house warm with the life they'd built. Clara's family settled in, her father tending a small vegetable patch by the porch, his arm now functional, her brother learning to ride and tend the cattle with a steady hand. Jasper and Clara worked as a team, their days filled with the rhythm of ranch life, their nights by the fire sharing stories of survival. One evening, she handed him a carved wooden bird, her hand steady, a gift crafted by her brother during his recovery. He placed it on the mantel, beside the deed, a symbol of their bond forged in danger. The past faded, the flight from the bandits, the rescue, the greed that had driven the raid, replaced by a shared future on the frontier. Jasper stood on the porch as the stars emerged, the night air cool, the quiet of the ranch a stark contrast to the chaos they'd endured. Clara joined him, her presence a comfort, her hand brushing his arm in a gesture of trust. Her father called from inside, his voice warm with the promise of supper. "Come eat, both of you." They turned, stepping in together, the ranch a home built on a foundation of that first desperate ride. The plains stretched vast and wild, but the ranch held them, a triumph of will, a family forged in the crucible of the Wild West.